Ladies and gentlemen, life is suffering. This is an undeniable truth. But within that suffering lies an opportunity to take control, to rise above, to eradicate the weakness that holds you back. Weakness isn't just physical, it's mental, emotional, and spiritual. It's the voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, that you should give up, that the struggle is too much to bear. But let me tell you something, that voice is lying to you. If you can learn to master your mind, to strip away the excuses, to face reality with courage, to push beyond the comfort of mediocrity, then everything in your life will change. Not just a little, completely, because strength isn't given, it's forged. And today we're going to talk about exactly how you can do that. Let's begin. Weakness often begins with a mindset, a belief that circumstances dictate our destiny. The victim mentality is a dangerous trap because it convinces you that external forces are responsible for your failures, that life is unfair, that you have no power to change your situation. This mindset robs you of agency, leaving you stuck in a cycle of self-pity, blame, and inaction. The first and most crucial step to erasing weakness from your mind is eliminating the victim mentality and taking full responsibility for your life. Taking responsibility is not about blaming yourself for everything that has gone wrong. It is about recognizing that regardless of what has happened to you, you are the one who must decide what happens next. If you were dealt a bad hand, it is still your responsibility to play it well. If you were mistreated, it is still your responsibility to heal and move forward. If you failed in the past, it is still your responsibility to learn, adapt, and try again. No one else can do this for you. The moment you internalize this truth, you reclaim your power. People who operate with a victim mindset look at life through the lens of unfairness. They believe that success is for the lucky, that obstacles are permanent, that their struggles are unique and insurmountable. They tell themselves that because of their upbringing, their environment, or their past experiences, they are doomed to stay where they are. This way of thinking becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you believe you are powerless, you act in a way that reinforces that belief. You hesitate to take action, you expect failure, and when challenges arise, you surrender instead of fighting back. Contrast this with those who take full responsibility for their lives. They see problems as challenges to overcome rather than as signs of their limitations. They do not deny the existence of hardship, but they refuse to let hardship define them. They ask themselves, what can I do about this? Rather than a why is this happening to me? They look for solutions instead of excuses. One of the most deceptive aspects of the victim mindset is that it can feel justified. You may have real pain, real struggles, and real obstacles. But the moment you allow these struggles to dictate your future, you surrender your power. It is true that some people start at a disadvantage. It is true that life is not always fair. But those who succeed are not the ones who had an easy path. They are the ones who refuse to let a difficult path stop them. The most dangerous phrase in a weak mind is, "It's not my fault." That phrase gives you permission to stay the same. It tells you that change is not your responsibility. But here is the hard truth. Even if something is not your fault, it is still your responsibility. If you are in a bad situation, whether caused by others or by your own past choices, you are still the one who must fix it. Blaming others will not change your life. Taking action will. Look at the people who have transformed their lives despite adversity. They all share one thing in common: radical responsibility. They refuse to let external factors control their destiny. They do not complain, they do not wait for someone to rescue them, and they do not wallow in self-pity. Instead, they take ownership of their decisions, their mindset, and their actions. To eliminate the victim mentality, you must change your internal dialogue. Pay attention to the way you think and speak about your struggles. Do you blame others? Do you focus on what you cannot control? Do you make excuses? If so, you need to shift your perspective. Start asking yourself, what can I do about this? Train your mind to focus on solutions, not problems. Develop a habit of action. When something goes wrong, take immediate steps to improve your situation instead of wasting time on self-pity. The shift from victimhood to responsibility is not easy. It requires brutal honesty. It requires admitting that many of your failures and struggles are the result of your own decisions. It requires resisting the temptation to blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck. But once you make this shift, you gain an incredible advantage over the majority of people who remain trapped in a cycle of weakness and blame. Taking responsibility does not mean you will never face hardship. It does not mean you will always succeed on your first attempt. But it does mean that every failure becomes a lesson. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to grow. Every setback becomes a stepping stone rather than a roadblock. When you adopt this mindset, you begin to realize that your potential is not determined by where you start, but by how you respond to the obstacles in your path. The way you speak to yourself determines the way you experience life. Your inner dialogue shapes your beliefs, influences your actions, and ultimately dictates your results. Weakness begins in the mind before it ever manifests in reality. It starts with the small, quiet thoughts that whisper doubts, create hesitation, and erode confidence. If you do not take control of this voice, it will take control of you. The words you tell yourself daily create the foundation of either strength or weakness. Most people are unaware of how much negativity fills their minds. They assume their thoughts are simply reflections of reality when in fact, their thoughts create reality. When you tell yourself that you are not good enough, that you will never succeed, that you always fail, you are not merely observing your life, you are shaping it. Every time you repeat these thoughts, they become more ingrained in your subconscious. They become the lens through which you see yourself in the world. Eventually, they dictate your behavior, making failure a self-fulfilling prophecy. Negative self-talk is insidious because it often disguises itself as logic or realism. It tells you that you are just being practical when you doubt yourself. It convinces you that expecting the worst will help you prepare for disappointment. But what it actually does is create limitations where none should exist. It conditions you to see obstacles instead of opportunities, to hesitate when you should act, and to settle when you should strive for more. Rewiring your inner dialogue requires an intentional effort. You must become aware of the thoughts that pass through your mind daily. Pay attention to the way you speak to yourself when you make a mistake, when you face a challenge, when things do not go as planned. Do you call yourself a failure? Do you tell yourself that you always mess things up? Do you assume that success is for other people, but not for you? These thoughts may feel automatic, but they are not permanent. They are patterns, and patterns can be broken. The first step is to challenge every negative thought. When your mind tells you that you are not capable, ask yourself, is that really true? When you assume you will fail, ask yourself, what evidence do I have that proves this? Most of the time, you will find that these thoughts are not based on reality. They are based on fear. Fear-based. The mind naturally seeks to protect itself from pain, so it creates narratives that justify staying in a place of comfort. But comfort is where weakness grows. Replacing negative self-talk with disciplined thinking is not about blind positivity. It is not about ignoring challenges or pretending that everything is easy. It is about choosing thoughts that strengthen you instead of weaken you. Instead of saying, I can't do this, say, I will figure this out. Instead of saying, I always fail, say, I am learning and improving. Instead of saying, I am not good enough, say, I am becoming better every day. These statements may feel unnatural at first because your mind has been conditioned to think differently. But just as negative thinking becomes a habit, so does disciplined thinking. Your words have power. Every time you choose to speak to yourself with strength instead of weakness, you are training your mind to work for you instead of against you. This does not mean you will never struggle with doubt. It means that when doubt arises, you will have the tools to counter it. It means that when fear tries to take over, you will have the mindset to push forward anyway. One of the most effective ways to rewire your thoughts is through repetition. The brain learns through consistency. The more you repeat a thought, the more deeply it becomes ingrained in your identity. This is why negative self-talk is so destructive. It is repeated so often that it feels like truth. But the same principle applies to positive and disciplined thinking. If you make a habit of reinforcing strength through your words, those words will shape your beliefs, and your beliefs will shape your actions. Surrounding yourself with the right influences also plays a critical role in changing your inner dialogue. The people you listen to, the content you consume, the environments you immerse yourself in, all of these factors affect the way you think. If you constantly hear messages of doubt, fear, and limitation, your mind will adopt those patterns. If you expose yourself to messages of discipline, growth, and resilience, your mind will align with those values. Be intentional about what you allow into your mental space. Protect your thoughts with the same level of discipline that you would protect anything valuable in your life. There will be moments when old thought patterns try to resurface. Times when you feel unworthy, when you feel incapable, when your past mistakes try to define you. In those moments, remind yourself that thoughts are not commands. They are suggestions. You have the power to accept or reject them. You do not have to listen to every fear, every doubt, every excuse. You can choose to replace them with thoughts that move you forward instead of hold you back. The transformation of your mind is a process. It does not happen overnight. But with persistence, awareness, and discipline, you can rewire your inner dialogue in a way that serves your goals instead of sabotages them. The stronger your thoughts become, the stronger your actions will be. The stronger your actions become, the stronger your reality will be. And it all starts with the words you choose to say to yourself every single day. Comfort is seductive. It whispers to you that you have done enough, that you deserve to rest, that the struggle is not worth it. It convinces you that avoiding pain is the same as finding happiness. But the truth is, the more you seek comfort, the weaker you become. Growth is only possible when you deliberately step into discomfort, when you willingly put yourself in situations that challenge you, stretch you, and force you to evolve. Weakness thrives in ease. Strength is built in adversity. The reason most people remain stuck is that they avoid discomfort at all costs. They do not want to wake up earlier, to push themselves harder, to endure criticism, to face failure. They tell themselves they will start tomorrow, that they need more time, that they are not ready. But what they are really doing is seeking a path that does not exist, the path where success comes without struggle. That path is an illusion. Every person who has achieved anything of significance has done so by embracing discomfort. They have willingly walked into difficulty, knowing that it is the only way to grow. The human mind is wired for survival, not success. It seeks to conserve energy, to minimize risk, to stay in the familiar. This is why discomfort feels so unnatural at first. Your mind resists it because it sees it as a threat. But this resistance is not a signal to stop. It is a sign that you are on the right path. When you feel the urge to retreat into comfort, that is the moment you must push forward. That is the exact moment when transformation begins. The strongest individuals are not those who avoid struggle, but those who deliberately expose themselves to it. They put themselves in situations where they must adapt, where they must endure, where they must overcome. They train their minds and bodies to handle stress, to remain composed under pressure, to push beyond what feels possible. They understand that by making themselves uncomfortable now, they will become unstoppable later. Physical training is one of the simplest and most effective ways to seek voluntary discomfort. When you push your body past its limits, you train your mind to do the same. Every time you lift more weight, run further, endure more pain, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of more than you thought. The body follows the mind. If you can convince yourself to keep going when your muscles burn, when your lungs scream for air, when every part of you wants to quit, then you are training yourself to apply that same resilience to every other aspect of life. But physical discomfort is only one piece of the puzzle. Okay. Mental discomfort is just as important. This means putting yourself in situations where you might fail, where you might look foolish, where you are forced to confront your weaknesses. It means having the difficult conversation instead of avoiding it. It means taking on the challenge you feel unqualified for. It means pushing through the fear of rejection, the fear of judgment, the fear of falling short. The more you expose yourself to these situations, the stronger you become. You begin to realize that fear is just an illusion, that failure is not the enemy, that discomfort is a necessary step toward greatness. The key to making discomfort a habit is to reframe the way you see it. Most people associate discomfort with suffering, with something to be avoided. But discomfort is not suffering, it is transformation. It is the process of breaking down the weak parts of yourself so that something stronger can take their place. The moment you stop fearing discomfort is the moment you become dangerous. When you can look at a challenge and say, this will make me better, instead of, this is too hard, you have already won. There is no shortcut to strength. There is no easy way to become disciplined, resilient, and unstoppable. The only way is through discomfort. The only way is through discomfort. You must make it a daily practice, something you actively seek instead of something you run from. You must condition yourself to thrive in situations where others quit, where others complain, where others give in to weakness. Over time, what once felt unbearable will become second nature. What once seemed impossible will become your new standard. The world belongs to those who are willing to do what others will not. It belongs to those who can endure more, push harder, and stay committed when things get difficult. Every moment of discomfort is an opportunity to build resilience, an opportunity to strengthen your mind, an opportunity to separate yourself from the average, the undisciplined, the weak. If you can make voluntary discomfort a part of your life, there is nothing that will be able to break you. Discipline is the foundation of strength. It is what separates those who achieve greatness from those who merely dream about it. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes, fluctuating with your emotions, circumstances, and energy levels. But discipline remains steady. It is the ability to do what needs to be done, even when you do not feel like doing it. It is the refusal to negotiate with excuses, the commitment to follow through on your goals, regardless of how you feel. Those who rely on motivation will always be inconsistent. Those who master discipline will always be in control. Most people wait until they feel ready before taking action. They wait for the perfect moment, the ideal circumstances, the spark of motivation that will push them forward. But that moment rarely comes. And even when it does, it is temporary. The excitement fades, the enthusiasm wears off, and they return to their old habits. This cycle repeats endlessly, keeping them stuck in the same patterns year after year. The only way to break free from this cycle is to build a foundation of discipline so strong that your actions are no longer dictated by emotions, but by commitment. Discipline begins with structure. If you do not have a plan, you will fall into chaos. Plague. Your mind will find excuses. Distractions will take over, and your progress will be minimal. Structure eliminates uncertainty. It tells you exactly what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. This is why the most disciplined individuals follow strict routines. They do not waste time debating whether they should work out, whether they should get up early, whether they should stay focused. The decision has already been made. They have set a standard for themselves and they do not deviate from it. The key to developing ruthless discipline is understanding that action must come before feeling. You do not wait until you feel like doing something to do it. You do it first, and then the feeling follows. This is true for every area of life. If you wait until you feel confident before taking action, you will remain stuck in fear. But if you take action despite the fear, confidence will follow. If you wait until you feel strong before pushing yourself, you will stay weak. But if you push yourself despite feeling weak, strength will follow. The mind is always looking for the easy way out. It will try to convince you that skipping one day does not matter, that resting for a little longer is harmless, that delaying your goals until tomorrow is not a big deal. But every time you give in to these thoughts, you reinforce weakness. Every time you push through them, you reinforce strength. Discipline is built in the small moments when no one is watching, when you are alone with your thoughts, when you make the choice to either rise above or give in. They wake up and ask, do I feel like doing this today? The disciplined individual does not ask that question. They simply act. There is no debate, no internal argument, no second guessing. They have already decided that success is non-negotiable, that their standards are unbreakable. This level of commitment is what makes them unstoppable. Pain and discomfort are unavoidable on the path to discipline. The mind resists structure because it craves comfort, but comfort is the enemy of progress. The moment you stop pushing yourself is the moment you begin to decline. The strongest individuals are not those who avoid struggle, but those who embrace it. They seek out challenges. They put themselves in difficult situations. They endure suffering willingly because they understand that discipline is forged in adversity. Sacrifice is also a necessary part of discipline. You cannot have everything at once. If you want to achieve mastery in any area of life, you must be willing to give up distractions, laziness, and weak habits. You must be willing to say no to short-term pleasure for the sake of long-term success. Ain't it so? This is what separates the disciplined from the undisciplined, the ability to delay gratification, to resist temptation, to stay focused when others lose direction. Discipline is not something you are born with. It is something you train. Every day is an opportunity to strengthen it or to weaken it. Every decision you make either builds your discipline or erodes it. There is no in between. The question is not whether you will be disciplined today or not. It is whether you will reinforce strength or reinforce weakness. The choice is always yours. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that shape human behavior. It dictates decisions, limits potential, and keeps people trapped in lives far below what they are capable of achieving. Fear whispers doubts, magnifies risks, and convinces you that staying where you are is safer than stepping into the unknown. It is the reason most people never take the first step toward their goals. It is the silent enemy that holds them back, disguising itself as caution, rationality, or common sense. But fear is a liar. It does not protect you. It imprisons you. And the only way to erase weakness from your mind is to confront fear head on and refuse to let it control you. Fear is not the problem. The problem is how you respond to it. Weakness is the result of surrendering to fear, of allowing it to dictate your choices. Strength is the result of acting despite fear, of recognizing it but refusing to let it make decisions for you. The most successful individuals in any field are not those who are fearless. They are those who feel fear but move forward anyway. They have conditioned themselves to see fear as a signal for action rather than a reason to retreat. The reason fear is so powerful is that it is deeply ingrained in the human mind. It is a survival mechanism, an instinct designed to protect you from danger. In the past, fear was necessary. It kept you alive by making you cautious of threats. But in the modern world, fear often operates against you. It prevents you from taking risks, from stepping outside your comfort zone, from seizing opportunities that could change your life. Instead of protecting you, it limits you. Instead of keeping you safe, it keeps you small. Most people live their entire lives obeying their fears. They avoid difficult conversations because they fear confrontation. They stay in unfulfilling jobs because they fear uncertainty. They never pursue their dreams because they fear failure. And in doing so, they sacrifice the life they could have had for the illusion of security. But security is a myth. Nothing in life is truly safe. The job you stay in for stability can disappear overnight. The relationships you avoid addressing can fall apart. The opportunities you let pass may never come again. When you let fear control your decisions, you are not avoiding risk. You are taking the greatest risk of all, the risk of never realizing your full potential. The only way to break free from fear is to face it directly. You cannot think your way out of fear. You cannot wait for it to disappear. The only way to weaken fear is through action. The moment you take the first step toward what you are afraid of, fear begins to lose its grip on you. The more you expose yourself to discomfort, the less power fear has over you. It is not a single battle, but a continuous process, a daily choice to refuse to be controlled by fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. The strongest individuals are not those who feel no fear, but those who refuse to let fear dictate their lives. They understand that every time they confront fear, they grow stronger. Every time they push through discomfort, they expand their limits. And over time, what once seemed terrifying becomes normal. The unknown becomes familiar. What once seemed impossible becomes a standard. Fear will always be there. It will always try to creep in, to whisper doubts, to remind you of your weaknesses. But you do not have to listen to it. You do not have to accept it as truth. Fear is only as powerful as the control you give it. If you refuse to bow to it, if you condition yourself to act despite it, fear loses its ability to hold you back. It becomes nothing more than background noise, present but powerless. Most people do not fail because they lack ability. They fail because they let fear convince them not to try. They allow fear to paralyze them, to keep them from stepping forward, to keep them from taking the necessary risks. But the ones who succeed are those who recognize that fear is just another obstacle to overcome. They train themselves to walk through fear instead of running from it. And in doing so, they develop the kind of mental toughness that separates them from the weak. Fear will never go away completely. It will always find new ways to challenge you, new doubts to plant in your mind. But every time you face it, you take back control. Every time you act in spite of fear, you prove to yourself that it does not own you. And over time, you become the kind of person who is no longer held back by fear, but strengthened by it. Your mindset is the foundation of everything you achieve or fail to achieve. It is the lens through which you see the world. the framework that determines how you interpret challenges, setbacks, and opportunities. Weakness begins in the mind long before it manifests in action. It starts with doubt, with hesitation, with the quiet acceptance of limitations. Strength, too, begins in the mind. It starts with belief, with clarity, with the absolute refusal to accept anything less than excellence. If you want to erase weakness from your life, you must first erase it from your mind. The problem is that most people do not realize how much control they have over their thoughts. They believe that thoughts simply appear, that emotions just happen, that their reactions are automatic and unchangeable. But this is false. Your mind is programmable, and every thought you entertain either strengthens you or weakens you. Every time you allow self-doubt to take root, you reinforce weakness. Every time you tell yourself you are not good enough, not strong enough, not capable enough, you reinforce the very limitations you wish to escape. But every time you reject these thoughts, every time you replace them with thoughts of strength, resilience, and determination, you rewrite the script of your life. First step in rewiring your mind is to become aware of the thoughts that dominate your internal dialogue. Most people do not pay attention to their thoughts. They simply react to them. They wake up in the morning and immediately allow negative, disempowering thoughts to dictate their mood and their actions. They think about what they have to do, about how tired they are, about how difficult life is, and they accept these thoughts as reality. But thoughts are not reality. They are merely interpretations, and interpretations can be changed. You must train yourself to question every thought that does not serve you. When your mind tells you that you cannot do something, ask yourself, is this true? More often than not, it is not. It is merely a conditioned response, a habit formed over years of accepting weakness as the default. The mind will always take the path of least resistance unless you force it to do otherwise. If you do not take control of your thoughts, they will take control of you. And if your thoughts control you, you will always be at the mercy of external circumstance. The most powerful way to reprogram your mind is through repetition. The thoughts you repeat become beliefs, and beliefs dictate actions. If you tell yourself you are weak, incapable, or doomed to fail, you will act accordingly. But if you tell yourself you are strong, disciplined, and unstoppable, your actions will begin to align with that identity. This is why affirmations, visualization, and deliberate self-talk are not just motivational gimmicks. They are essential tools for mental conditioning. When you repeatedly tell yourself a new story, your brain begins to accept it as truth. And once your mind believes something, your body follows. Your environment also plays a crucial role in shaping your mindset. If you surround yourself with people who complain, who make excuses, who settle for mediocrity, their mindset will influence yours. The human brain is wired for social mirroring. It unconsciously adopts the beliefs and behaviors of those around it. This means that if you want to develop a mindset of strength, you must be intentional about who you allow into your mental space. You must seek out individuals who push you, who challenge you, who embody the discipline and resilience you want to develop. You must eliminate influences that reinforce weakness, whether they come from people, media, or even your own past conditioning. Mental strength is not something you are born with. It is something you build through consistent effort. Just as physical strength requires training, so does mental toughness. This means putting yourself in situations that test you, that force you to confront discomfort, that challenge your old patterns of thinking. It means embracing adversity as an opportunity to grow rather than as an excuse to retreat. The more you expose yourself to difficulty, the more your mind adapts and the more resilient you become. Fear, doubt, and negativity will always try to creep in, but you do not have to accept them. You have the power to override them, to replace them with thoughts that empower you. This is not about lying to yourself or pretending challenges do not exist. It is about choosing an interpretation that makes you stronger rather than weaker. It is about training your mind to see obstacles as stepping stones rather than roadblocks. The most successful people in the world are not those who never face doubt or fear, but those who have trained themselves to override these emotions with action. Your mind is the battleground where weakness is either defeated or allowed to grow. Every moment you have a choice to strengthen your mindset or to weaken it. There is no in-between. If you do not actively take control of your thoughts, they will default to fear, laziness, and limitation. But if you discipline your mind, if you force yourself to think with clarity, purpose, and strength, there is nothing you cannot overcome.